Hi everyone. This is the first time I've checked in for a good few weeks, and today is actually quite a special day because the Australian Parliamentary Inquiry into Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome released their final report, and what that report contained was a recognition of many of the people who submitted. Submissions into the inquiry, and that included a huge amount of sufferers and patients who had suffered from SIRS and other environmental illnesses. And it also included medical practitioners like myself and indoor environmental professionals like Mold Lab and Jeremy Stamkos and the Building Biologists Association of Australia, and it included the Toxic Mold Support Group, which is like a consumer support group, which is mainly run through Facebook. And there was a number of recommendations which came out of it, including a need for further research into this condition, which of course is very, very important. And I'm very excited about the possibility of research into CIRS leading to a number of further breakthroughs in future, which are going to help people developing this condition to be able to move forward and reach even better health outcomes than we have so far. I mean, there's already been a tremendous number of breakthroughs in this field of CIRS, you know, going all the way from binders such as cholestyramine, which is one of the first things that was discovered by the Shoemaker research team, which was actually discovered on accident in a patient who developed fisturia, and then the discovery of Marcons and the importance of that species of staph in CIRS, and then going all the way to the biomarkers, including C4A, TGF-beta1, and MMP9, and MSH, etc., and the importance and the importance that they play in the physiology of CIRS. And then finally leading all the way to things like the VIP nasal spray, which is very, very powerful in repairing the inflammatory pathway for patients who are dealing with SIRS. And even more recent discoveries such as looking at NeuroQuant, which is a certain type of computerized brain analysis, and also genomics, which is looking at the gene expression patterns of patients with SIRS. And I think the future holds promise for many more new discoveries in this field, and really we're just scratching the surface. But also what was recommended by the committee was the development of guidelines by the Department of Health for general practitioners around Australia, and that would be something that they could do in collaboration with medical practitioners and other key stakeholders in this area of water damaged buildings. And that's certainly something that is welcomed, as is the revision and review of building codes around Australia. And looking at where there could be deficiencies in building codes leading to this kind of epidemic that we have now of water damaged buildings. And so it really was a positive thing in many ways. And I think for patients or even medical practitioners like myself, what that report seems to have given is a degree of validation for this journey that we've all been on for these last several years. And for myself, having had experienced this to a certain degree myself, and having spent and invested a large amount of time into learning the theoretical basis of this condition, and then really having seen a large number of patients from all around Australia and even overseas with this condition, having seen that to some degree it has been accepted by Parliament and validated, its existence being validated by Parliament, is a rather nice feeling. And just wanted to talk a little bit more about the importance of being validated. And in some ways, the feeling, you know, the concept or the experience of being invalidated is one of the most dehumanizing experiences you possibly can have. And So if you take the example, for instance, of suffering from an illness, which is actually already involving a great deal of suffering on a personal level, but when there's also a degree of not being validated by the medical world or by relatives and friends, it really doubly adds or really multiplies to the suffering involved in this illness. And that's something I've talked about before. But to be validated and to be heard and to be seen for what one has experienced can be considered to be a very basic human need. And until that human need to be heard and to be seen and to be validated has been met, it's very difficult to move forward and make changes and evolve as a person in other ways in your life. And one could say that it's a basic foundation or a basic bedrock for further personal growth. And therefore, what I find when I'm working with patients or working with clients is that one of the first things that comes up as part of the initial assessment that takes place in our clinic is that simply the act of listening with the full heart and full attention to the person's story and to some of the losses that they've experienced as part of the journey, to some of the traumas that they've experienced as part of their journey, and some of the significant exposures that they've had along the way to becoming unwell, are really some of the big keys in terms of really just conducting a proper and thorough history of any patient who's chronically unwell. And once that part has been achieved and people feel this sense of being heard and being validated, then the rest of the process often seems to unravel very automatically. And so really, I think validating yourself in terms of your experience of this chronic illness process is extremely important, and validating the fact that there have been significant traumas for you, that there has been significant suffering and losses along the way, is a really, really important thing. And it possibly is more important than meets the eye. And so, for instance, in one patient's case that I had today, it appeared to just be a really important turning point for that patient to just validate the fact that she had been brought up in a very traumatic environment, in one in which she didn't feel safe and in which essentially she felt traumatized. And to some degree, the fact that her parents hadn't accepted or fully acknowledged the fact that she had been traumatized as a child meant that there was a degree of invalidation which was always bubbling under the surface. And so just even being able to validate herself on that level, the fact that she had had a great deal of trauma in her childhood history was another very, very healing process for her. So really what I'm hoping you guys might like to reflect on as an add-on to this video of tonight is, in which way do you feel that you need to be validated as part of your health journey, and how have you found that validation, either as you know, this governmental report coming out, or in any other way, as part of your personal, you know, health process? How have you found that's impacted you, and what part do you think validation has to play on recovering from chronic illness? So I look forward to seeing your comments and interacting below. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you.